Hello, everyone. Welcome to JHC and Friends, and I'm excited about my next guest, Ben Graybar. Thanks for taking the time to be on my show today.
Absolutely honored to be asked.
For those of you who don't know, Ben Graybar is, I think, one of the most influential leaders in town in Tallahassee because he's been involved in so many things throughout the community. You're a financial advisor and all the things, and one of the main organizers for TLH Beer Fest. So I brought him on to just kind of get some insight into the Tallahassee business community and talk about his story. So thanks for hopping on. And I think you should do a better intro than what I typically do for my guests. So can you go ahead and just do a quick intro of yourself?
Yeah, I was saying we need some walkout music, maybe clanging glasses like they do on the radio ads for the beer festival. I don't know. Yeah, so I'm Ben Graybar, and I've been in Tallahassee since 1988. I've been married to my wife here for 28 years. Got a 23-year-old son who's currently working at the A-Loft where he finished his internship and just graduated from FSU. And I have a 17-year-old at Childs. And then my wife she works in advertising as well. So she does billboard sign things around the universities.
Awesome. Thanks. Wow. So you mentioned, well, I have a daughter at Lincoln, so we're pretty much arch rivals, I think. So no. So what made you move to Tallahassee then?
Well, and Lincoln's a great school too. Alan Birch is a good principal, and his wife Heather was in, or maybe she still is, Sunrise Rotary and did braces for both of my kids. So,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Great family over there. I moved to Tallahassee. I was going to sort of an interesting background to me, I guess. I went to high school in Pennsylvania and high school in Vestavia Hills, Alabama, which is Birmingham. Went to Vanderbilt, and then decided pre-med wasn't my thing, and I wanted to study business. And they had an economics sort of thing, but not really a business thing going at that point. So I knew I wanted to live in a warm climate, and Florida was the first choice. And I had one of my buddies at Vanderbilt was in Jacksonville, and my father then moved from Birmingham to Jacksonville. So I went home and met that circle of friends and decided most of them were going to Florida State. So I had an instant in crowd and said, I'll just transfer over here. And then I went undergrad straight through to get my MBA, and in a shortened time period, taking some extra business courses to finish that up. And so that's how I landed here, even though I left for Jacksonville for about 1 year, which is where I met my wife on a blind date. And she also an FSU alum. And when I said, I'd love to go back to Tallahassee, and we decided that's what we would do. And we've been here ever since.
That's awesome. And I'm sure, every time I speak to other parents, we have no regrets about raising our kids here.
That's what we hear so much. When you get involved with people that are in the groups that are trying to network to bring people to Tallahassee, what they all say is all these kids, if they're not from here, they got to leave. And then they go, when I start my family, this is more the environment I would like to raise them in. And so for me, it was an interesting thing when you lived in 7 different states and 20 something houses, and you move into a community and you go, whoa, suddenly this feels like home. It's like, how can it feel like home? You've been in so many other places and you just got here. But that's what Tallahassee always felt like to me.
It really does. And they say it grows on you. I joke that I'm 12 years new, and it really is and has grown on me. And I have 4 kids, and raising them here has been amazing. So that's awesome. So 30 years. Wait, you moved here. Like, I don't even want to calculate.
88. Yeah.
And so you have a broad spectrum of experience, in finance. And then I know I attended one of the JMI events that you spoke at on cybersecurity.
Yeah.
So you're really you're involved in a lot of things, including F3, which we can talk about too. Do you just kind of you just don't want to be bored on one thing kind of thing?
Yeah, I don't like sitting idle too much. You got to take a little bit of a downtime, rest time to recover from whatever it is. But I like to go nonstop all day if you can.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, what made you get into the field that you're in, and you have a background in business. You got an MBA and a bachelor's in economics
Mm-hmm.
too. So
So the first role was in Jacksonville, New York Life, Prudential. The two of them, followed my managing director across the street. And just because in 1992, it was some semi-recession time, so there wasn't a whole ton of hiring going on. And I said, well, I have an interest in that, so we'll see where that leads us. And then when my wife and I decided to move back to Tallahassee, a recruiter placed me with a company called Green Tree Financial, which at the time was the number one growth stock on the New York Stock Exchange 5 years in a row, which that people that knew that, but and it ended up being an interesting background in credit and underwriting and servicing of loans and foreclosing, unfortunately, when need be. And so we had an office on Delta Boulevard, and we serviced almost over 25,000 households were making loan payments through that company then. And the company, kind of interesting to me, I guess, when they sold out to where the Indiana Pacers play in the Conseco Fieldhouse. So Green Tree sold out to Conseco, and then they figured out it wasn't a good marriage of the two companies, and they sort of shut the whole thing down. And it's like, oh, well, maybe it's time to look into something different. And so that was I had worked in the Career Placement Center at the College of Business at FSU, and the regional administrator for Nations Bank at the time, Kevin Cobb, was one of the guys that I knew socially. And I said, Kevin, I need to get a job in banking. And so he says, you're overqualified. I'm not going to do that. And I said, well, let's make a deal. How long do I have to commit to hanging around if you decide that I'm a fit? And he goes, minimum 2 years. I said, fine, done. So I had to go in and take some personality tests to make sure it was a fit, and then got into banking with Nations Bank, which went through the merger with Bank of America at the time. And that sort of began okay, you go in, you train as a branch manager, and in doing that, they train you as a teller. Then you get to go back and be a branch manager. And then if you were a top performer, you got into premier client management, where you would be the office upstairs, so people didn't have to go sit in the lobby and wait for whomever to assist them. So the higher net worth folks, and I still had investments licenses then. So I was partnering with at the time it was Bank of America Investments. And of course, Bank of America then acquired Merrill Lynch. So it became Bank of America Merrill Lynch. And so in doing that, you ended up having to assist with a lot of commercial loans for individuals that maybe it didn't make sense for them to go to a commercial banker, but it was still a business commercial type transaction, and started doing more of those. And that's when, at the time, Tallahassee State Bank, which is Synovus Bank, called up and said, we'd like to talk to you about being a commercial banker for us. And so then, that leads into the discussion of it. Do you ever change jobs, and what's the minimum amount of raise in income that makes sense for you to actually consider moving?
And okay, because I know I met you before during your Hancock days. So
yeah, that same thing happened after Synovus with Hancock Whitney.
Yeah. Okay. And then somehow, and then you got to Gant. It's called Southern Wealth Group. Sorry.
Yeah. So banking is fun and interesting, and but it basically is 3 areas, right? It's get deposits, it's make loans, and then sort of the sidekick on it is treasury management, which is into the commercial banking thing, where there's things about commercial accounts that you need to do for security and safety and efficiency. And that is what sort of kicked off the interest in cybersecurity, because I was in a networking group at the time. It was the Tips Club of Tallahassee. And there was a guy in there that he said, I got to ask you a banker question, because he comes in and it's like, I think our meetings were Thursday. And he said, let me tell you what happened over the weekend. He goes down out of town to Meekum. He buys some cars on a debit card he has tied to a business account, and comes back Monday. I guess it was his wedding anniversary. So he took Monday off, and he goes in Tuesday, and all hell's breaking loose. And it's like the Meekum's saying, we're not delivering the cars. Other finance folks that he had things that like checks are starting to bounce. And he's like, what is going on? I had a ton of money in the bank. I don't understand this. And so I started looking into it with him as he was looking into it with his bank. And I think the FBI was involved at this point because it was over $250,000 that just disappeared. And so they were trying to figure out how. And this was, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago at this point. So it was in the infancy of all of this sort of mushrooming. And so in the role of commercial banker, then the treasury management tools you have, a lot of them are about fraud prevention, preventing fake checks, preventing ACH fraud from coming out of your account. And one of the things now that sort of morphed into NEBA at the time, the Network of Entrepreneurs and Business Advocates. I was a prior board member, and they said, hey, are you comfortable talking about this? Because there's a lot of buzz about this going on in the news. I said, sure. So I put together a talk that would, just pulling news clips of the different stories and then talking to the guys that actually know what's going on in the cyber world. So the guys that run computer companies like, Premier Aegis, any of those guys, and saying what happened negatively to any of your clients that you can tell me about, and then marrying that up with national news research. And so that became what is now I do for the Jim Moran Institute, the College of Entrepreneurship, the Entrepreneurial Excellence Program, so existing small businesses and nonprofit executives. And we say, here's the stuff that is still impacting people right here, right now, today. And that's just sort of a sidekick passion. I don't get compensated for that other than to stay sharp on the topic. But that didn't answer your question. So
no, it does.
The point of it, though, was after sort of getting that exposure, Gant came into the bank and we had a conversation about structuring finances and things like that. And I said, hey, in order to have bonus discussions at the bank, I've got to do things in the wealth management space, also make referrals into my guys that do that. And so I'd love to maybe use you as a resource with the stuff that you do. And maybe we can refer back and forth. And so he said, okay, let's have a coffee one day. And so then I got to hear what he was describing as what it is that at the time it was Gant Financial Group. They've grown enough. They're in 26 states, and we've got people that work in our group in 4 states, I think, at this point. And so we decided Southern Wealth is a better name because it doesn't make somebody think that they're limited to where we are. The old saying holds true. If you have to drive 3 hours to get somewhere, you're going to see an expert. If it takes 10 minutes, then they don't know what they're doing. So it's interesting that so many of our clients are in Gainesville and Jacksonville and Ponte Vedra and St. Augustine and St. Simons and Pensacola, Destin. We've got I was on a Zoom call with someone from Texas, 2 different towns in Texas, actually. But a lot of clients will just up and move. And in order to stay with them, you just make sure that you're licensed in that state and you can continue to have conversations. And I will take the opportunity to give the brag slide request for you that we had.
Yeah.
It's kind of, who knows if it'll happen again, but we were honored in August of this year to be recognized by Forbes as top 25 security professionals in the state of Florida, which is a nice thing. Yeah. So it just adds a little bit of, if you don't know who we are, and if we don't have a client that says, yeah, you can tell them to call me, then at least it adds a little bit of credibility there.
That's awesome. It looks like you guys have a great culture as well. It's a nice, good sized team. Are these ones, if I pull this up again, is this the Tallahassee team?
Yeah, those are most of the team. There's a few people that didn't fly in to take the picture, and we've changed out a couple of the staff in that picture that have gone on to do other things. So, for example, Emily's on the far left, and what she was doing here, she's now doing for the Northwestern Mutual home office. And, and we're missing Kylie and Donna from that picture, who have taken over and assisting with that role. So to me, I think financial advising is quite different and diverse. So when I was doing it years ago at New York Life, and it's still done that way with a lot of folks now, but you might have one person, especially when they're starting out, and then who is their support team? Well, maybe they have a shared support team, or maybe they can actually hire somebody. And I was counting, when we, from start to finish with us onboarding somebody just with our Southern Wealth team, there's at least 5 people who they've interacted with, and that has a different role in sort of the assembly line process of the onboarding and servicing of what we do. So we're quite a different focused team. We generally will talk to folks that either they're making a substantial amount of income, maybe 350 plus, or they have already maybe $1 million or investable assets. There's a lot of what ifs and it depends that go along with that. But a lot of people will engage us just to create the plan and to help them understand their perspective, where the cracks lie, and roll all this stuff forward and show them what their trajectory is going to take them, so they have a better understanding of, do they need to adjust their path while they can, before just getting there and going, okay, now what can I do?
Would you say Tallahassee, I mean, I see it. It's happening in Florida all over the place. It's obviously growing. It's a growing market. And your customer base is high net worth people. And
generally speaking,
yeah.
Well, the reason is what we do, a lot of it is tax mitigation, and a lot of it is the change from I'm saving to I'm going to go live off of my savings. And it's a different skill set to say, should I buy this or not? Is this a tip? Should I exit this? It's like those questions are things that we generally don't deal with. And there are a lot of people that do. And so sometimes there's a split relationship, or people just enjoy sort of doing it on their own. We are really about the planning, giving perspective and understanding, mapping all of this stuff out. And then, of course, we do the investing in the deployment of it. But we're not the folks that you call to say, I want to buy 10 shares of this, please. And that's all we're going to do. Yeah.
Okay. And you obviously have a great network. You probably refer certain ones in town that you can trust regarding, like, maybe it's buying assets or private equity, everything related to private equity. And
yeah, we make a lot of referrals to people that are business brokers trying to sell a company, to private equity folks that might be interested in acquiring a company, to a lot of estate planning attorneys at different skill levels, depending on what the need is. Obviously, CPAs and accountants in that realm, and then a lot of lenders. So whether it's home mortgage buying or selling of a building, or just figuring out what the right financing structure for something is. A lot of folks, in the world of banking, here's sort of the dirty secret. It used to be years ago, you and I would have a relationship and you would come to me for everything if I was who you chose to use as your banker. And then through regulatory requirements, the banks and lending institutions had to define the box that they were going to lend in. Well, if you needed something that's outside of the box, suddenly I'm not your best option. And now the question is, do I tell you that, or do I rely on you not asking anything and maybe us trying to customize something that really wasn't in your best interest, with me knowing that there's a better option somewhere else? So you ended up being in this environment today where, depending on what it is you need, you probably have to have a network of relationships with different folks for different things. So now I get to sit in the seat where I'm talking to different lenders at different banks, saying, one example is, a client wanted a jumbo mortgage. In this case, it was a $3 million mortgage up in the Atlanta suburb. And in this rate environment, obviously we're sitting here with uniquely high rates compared to where we were just recently, but not historically outside of the norm. And they said, what's the best way to do this? Should I go fixed or variable? Our rate's going to come back down. Who's got the best option? And when it comes to, most of these loans are done in the secondary market. So whoever it is originates the loan, and in a month you get a note saying you're going to pay somebody different now. Well, with this one, we found a portfolio or in-house loan where the lender originates it and holds it and services it themselves. They never sell it. And so the only way you find out about it is you got to call that lender and say, what do you have? And this particular one was 1% lower than all the other stuff that we were finding out there for the client. So now, once 1% on 3 million, that moves the needle a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's part of the network of assistance and structuring of things that can be helpful.
I'm looking. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's almost 12, and we clearly need more time. I want to try. Okay, because I also wanted to talk about your experience with just TLH Beer Fest. Like, that's a lot of fun thing. You're involved with a lot of fun different groups and events, and even, of course, just quickly touch on F3. So I have this here. She's with United Partners for Health.
Amber is the
Oh,
executive
Amber.
director of United Partners for Human Services,
Yeah.
which house, I think, over 150 member nonprofits now. And they do a wide berth of things from trainings to advocacy to education pieces for the members, but great support system in the nonprofit network. So the very short story on that is I was part of Sunrise Rotary for a number of years. They created Brewfest and ran that for, I think, 14 years and decided to go a different direction. And so I was able to talk to the distributors because at the time, those things were just 90% plus distributors. So Tri-Eagle was the main one first. Cone came around. And then at the time, I think Brown was there and they're gone now. There was Cavalier doesn't really do as much there. Progressive is now getting involved. And so those guys would have all the brands that they represent and they would show up. So I've made a phone call and said, you know me from the other thing, but there were 15 of us running the committee. I was one of the guys. Now I'm going to run this all by myself with some help of the nonprofit who's going to be the name so you can make the beer donation and still give the stuff for nothing. Are you good with that? And I was sitting in Mexico Beach and Ryan Baldwin from Tri-Eagle called back after a day wait and said, yeah, we'll do it. And so the first one was born, and if we had it picked out an October date, it was going to be in the pavilion, the center of Tallahassee, and then we had Hurricane Michael. Oh, and then we had to, and so I'm standing down with trees all over my house going, Ryan, I don't know if your folks are going to be able to get here. They have power over there still, but I don't. And then we said, well, the hotels are going to be full. We got to kick the can. So we picked a date in January, right in between the playoffs for the NFL and the Super Bowl, because it was a dead week, and that was perfect. And then the pavilion ended up, closing down with COVID. We had our event there a month before COVID came out, and they never reopened that. And so then we needed to move to the Civic Center, and the issue is it's basketball season, and they don't pick the tip-off times.
Oh, okay.
So we had to then move it again to late summer. So now I'm jockeying with the chamber over when's your event? When does the 2 weeks for FSU, the move-in weekend, because we can't get the hotels at a discount then. I don't want to have it during an FSU home game because I won't get the hotels then. So it's all, this year it's going to be August 10th. But what was really cool is we hit 120 breweries. We actually had to turn away some for space. We sold out about 3,000 people. And the goal is always to be a win-win-win. It's not maximize the dollars. It's yes, make dollars that all go to the UPHS and their members. That's great. I'm a volunteer. I get paid in leftover beer. That's fine. But it's great for Tallahassee. We filled up, I think, over 150 hotel rooms for that. So that's great. Visit Tallahassee is a good partner with that. And then it's actually the second largest beer tasting event in Florida. Yeah. And so we try to have a Friday night event where the ones that are traveling over 3 hours are coming in, and we're having something special. So now the brewers have some collaborative opportunities. And so win-win-win there. I think we made 64 grand net this last year, which was a new high.
Just this year. So in it, like you've made, I think I saw it in the numbers on the website, but it's
over $250,000 at this point that we've done since in our 5 years. Yeah.
That's
to local
real
nonprofits.
Economic impact. And that's why I feel like it's a lot of success, and you've proven that you can do events like that here. There's only a few event organizers in town that actually do that outside of sports. And
give credit where it's due. Amber has documented all of this, and now we have our own team and committee, and I have been greatly diminished because of the competence of the other people on the team. But
still. They're like, Ben, you're good now. You got it. I'm just kidding.
Yes, you go sit over there.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I want to respect your time too. And if you would like, we could still put in a quick plug for F3.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So what you have is hot off the press, a chart there in Tallahassee. We call them AOs, or areas of operations. So it's 6 days a week. And you see at least 3, if not 4, different workouts. I see 5 on Tuesday. Workouts during the day. They're all either 5 a.m., 5:25 a.m., or Saturdays, 7 a.m. And whoever comes. It's free. It's actually global. It's in, I think, 4 continents now, but it's coast to coast in the US. So when I went to visit my sister in Dallas in June, I looked up her house, looked up closest F3 locations, showed up, and there's 20 guys. And so, yes, there's also a female version, Females in Action Tallahassee, as a Facebook page. You can message them there. They obviously want privacy for the girls going out doing that. But there are,
Right.
on the Facebook page for F3 Tallahassee, over 600 people. And so
Wow.
some people come, twice a year. Some people come once a week. Some people go 4 or 5 times a week. It's whatever works for you. But the thing is, yes, it's workout. Yes, it's free, but it's really the fellowship. It is the
Right.
best quality, character-wise group of guys that I've encountered as a group anywhere through Tallahassee. I don't mind saying that. People are willing to lend a hand, but more importantly, we grow up, we start our world, and then we're kind of consumed by work and home, and we lose the identity of the buddies often.
Right.
And
Yeah.
this replaces that and puts it back and builds that network of friends again.
I love that. Yeah, there's definitely bonding, community, and you guys go out there, rain or shine. That's what I hear.
Rain or shine, hot or cold, doesn't matter. You're just outside.
Hot or cold. Oh my goodness. And it's extreme here. When it's cold, it's really cold. And then when and you have an event coming up that you already had spoken for, right? For the
right.
Yeah, go ahead and I'll pull
yeah,
that up.
The Florida Institute of CPAs, FICPA. So I started speaking with them when I was still a banker. Donna's son was the executive director, and she calls me on a Sunday because COVID had hit and the SBA was rolling out these programs to try to support local businesses. And I had been an SBA lender, which really was semi-unrelated to the concept of what they were doing, but it was still SBA. So they said, why don't you talk on it? And it was interesting to me because she says, let's try to sign this up for like Tuesday and then maybe another one on Thursday if it goes well. I said, no, because they're rolling out changes to the law so fast, it'll be a different presentation. Let's just do 2 in one day. So we made one morning, one afternoon. They sold out both of them. They had 600 available slots. They had 1,200 people that tuned in that day to that.
Wow.
And that bled into, now that they're doing this, they said, well, we're doing a holistic financial planning conference. Is this something that you might assist with? And, is that in your skill set? And so this is the 4th year that I've been helping them with that. And so we asked the prior year attendees, what do they have an interest in hearing about? So this year, the targeted conversation was Social Security, all the nuances, when to claim and file and all of that. And then long-term care, because a lot of people have questions and just don't really understand what that is, except maybe they're having to provide care for their parents, or their parents are going through all of their retirement savings and they're like, what do we need to do here? What are the options? And there's such diversity in what's available out there from one institution to the next. And then lastly, we covered what's going on in the markets. And there's a big difference, again, between accumulation planning and distribution planning. And so we talk about the shifts and the ways that you can actually see an impact on the money. Would you rather take, if you have a budgeted express need of $8,000 a month, and we run the math and tell you can actually spend 10, or you're going to leave this much behind? It's like that's a significant difference in my lifestyle. I was just going to live the way I was living, and then not understanding what that meant to what they were going to leave behind. Because interestingly, some people, they say, I want to come in to the parking lot at the end of life on 3 wheels and an empty tank of gas, and the heck with everybody else. And other people say, no, I want my kids to get every penny we can. And can we do this intergenerationally? And what's that look like? And how do I take tax off the table as much as possible? So we get to have fun conversations like that.
Wow. So you're not only just a speaker. I didn't realize, it sounded like you helped with organizing some of it too.
Well, we make sure that we cover the topics that the CPAs who are getting continuing education credit have an interest in hearing. And often they're having these conversations with their clients, and they need to know what they don't know that bleeds into our side of the balance sheet.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ben. I mean, I'm just going to share quickly your contact info for anyone who wants to get in touch with you. You obviously do a lot, and I wish I could ask you more. You need your own series of episodes.
Well, I greatly appreciate you having an interest and giving me the platform. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on my humble show, and I would love to have you on again and dive deep into some of the other things you're involved in. So
Want to start doing new stuff, so we got stuff to talk about.
serious. If you want your own series, let's get together and let's plan it.
All right.
Thank you so much, Ben.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and end the show, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye, everyone.